Hello, everybody. It is a gorgeous day outside in Milwaukee, and we are in the gorgeous No Studios with a gorgeous studio audience here. Make some noise. All right, so in case you've been living under a rock, let me just tell you, No Studios is the new artist, social venue, collaborative workspace, and member organization for artists, creatives, and people who just love art. So there's a lot happening here. Today's sort of like an open house, so there's a lot of activity going on. So if you haven't been to No Studios, come on down. We're in the PAPS development area, and you can take a tour, you can see some art in progress, there's gonna be some music happening later on, a party in the rooftop lounge, but I've got the best gig here all day because I'm gonna be interviewing a series of our members, and our members are all creative types, entrepreneurs, and just people doing really interesting things, so it's gonna be some really interesting conversations. And of course, if you can't be here live streaming and listening in is your best option. So grab some popcorn, pour yourself a cup of coffee or a stiff drink because we are gonna have some fun. So I am your host for today. My name is Beth Ridley, and I own a company called The Brimful Life, and it is all about solutions to help people fill their everyday life with joy and meaning. So it is a natural partnership between The Brimful Life and No Studios, which is all about positive people and positive things. All right, so we're gonna jump right into it. I am so happy to kick off our interview series here with our first guest, who, by the way, wins the prize for like the best name ever. A rock star name, her name is Andi Sciacca. I think we could just kind of leave the conversation there. But let me tell you a little bit about Andi. So when I was reading Andi's bio, I'm gonna call you've got like a portfolio career because you're doing like a lot of things, but I would say they're all within the umbrella of education. Is that fair enough? Okay,
definitely,
good.
Definitely.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you, maybe pick your top 2 or 3 things that fall within that portfolio that you're engaged in and that you're excited to talk about.
Sure. I think the first thing is I'm really lucky because I married somebody that does what I do. And so one of the things I'm most excited about is our company, which is Reason at Work. There's 2 sort of sub-organizations within that, Reason.io and Reason IQ. And so it's really fun when you get to do what you love to do all day, but especially with a partner who's just as excited and super smart and super ambitious.
And I may invite you back just to have another interview just about that, because I think actually working with a spouse, I mean, you could probably teach a class on that. And maybe you do, I don't know.
We should, actually, yeah. Anyways, it requires a balance, that's for sure.
I was gonna say, not to derail you, so go on with your projects.
Thanks. What we do is work with organizations and communities trying to put philosophy into practice and ideas into action. So sometimes we'll be approached by a client who really wants to get a workshop running, or they have a specific skill and they'd like to turn it into a course. Other times it's very dedicated one-on-one mentoring. We do a lot of work with local startups, working in the tech space, the food space, and the education space, and then also in philosophy and ethics. So I would say that's probably number 1 because that kind of rules my day. Number 2 would be anything that allows me to connect to young entrepreneurs. So I'm just so delighted to be back in Milwaukee. I spent 20 years in New York. And I came back, I think, at an amazing time because there's so much building here, but the spirit of young innovators and young entrepreneurs is just fire right now. And it's so great to be able to support that, to help people that want to start, whether it's a restaurant or a pop-up, or a tech company, or do something that helps create community. Yeah. And I think that's probably the number 1 theme, and that's why No Studios seems such a perfect fit, because it's really dedicated to community building around the entrepreneurial and creative space. And I think that that's exactly where it needs to be. The focus needs to be there.
I agree, and I find that a lot of young people, they don't want traditional jobs. They gravitate more towards creative jobs, jobs where it can be incorporated into their lifestyle, where they have a fair amount of control, and that means also being entrepreneurs. So I think you're sort of modeling something with this portfolio career that I think a lot of young people look to and say, yeah, that's the type of like career that I want to have, not just one thing where I go and work for the same company for the rest of my life, but I'm able to engage in like a whole lot of things. So when you come across young people like that, what's kind of some advice you give them when they think about their career and how to be fulfilled and happy in their career?
That's a great question. And I think the number one thing that I find myself saying to young entrepreneurs is to validate themselves. They don't need external validation. It's great to pursue your education. It's great to get degrees and certifications. But I think for especially my generation and older, that became the only way to really prove your value. And I think what's so impressive is how many bold and yet vulnerable people I encounter who are really trying to make something happen. You have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. You have to be willing to take risks. But to judge yourself or your readiness by some external standard is the worst thing you can do if you have an entrepreneurial mindset. Because what needs to happen is you need to throw the seeds to the ground and see what grows and pay attention to what you want to see. And if there's a weed, you pluck it and you move on. It's not something that's, a one-way path to success.
Now, it sounds like you give that advice from a lot of maybe personal experience and conviction. How did you come to realize that yourself? Because I think for all of us, career is a journey and sort of feeling comfortable and confident in ourselves. So maybe just tell us a little bit about your own past experience that maybe led you to be able to give that kind of advice to a young person.
Sure. So all throughout high school, I thought that I was going to be a surgeon, and I was in a pre-med track. I went and saw cadavers at the Medical College of Wisconsin with my class and said, there's no way I can do this. And the person who led the tour said, don't worry, you'll be eating lunch in here, within a week. And I was just like, that's not what I want. And so suddenly I was sort of questioning what I had prepared myself for. And I took a very non-traditional path. I didn't go to college right away. I took a couple of years off. I moved to New York. I traveled.
So that was a gap year before it became in vogue to take a gap year, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I took a couple of different gap years. I started a salon and day spa in Shorewood with some friends, just, because we felt like seeing if there was a way to integrate art with wellness. I was working as a caterer, as a sort of pastry chef for a while. I did a lot of different things that I thought would be interesting because I wanted to learn new things and stay learning. When I moved to New York, I entered a graduate program that was phenomenal, and it really opened my eyes to all sorts of things that I knew I wanted to study. But I supported myself by being a building super living in the East Village. And as a woman, that was a very strange thing to do. When I started teaching, I found myself teaching, labor history courses for the Local 3 International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, or teaching in prisons, in maximum security prisons.
Sure, why not?
Why not? Exactly. And it gave me a sense of appreciation, but also just an awareness of what resilience really looks like and how education need not be a barrier. In fact, it should be the opposite of that. It should be the great transformative equalizer, something that allows us to really just pursue what we love and put meaning behind our work. And that really drove my teaching. And so from there, I ended up taking a summer teaching job at the Culinary Institute of America. I was on a fellowship for poetry, and I was just kind of bored, and I missed teaching. And that opened up a whole nother world to me, this right brain, left brain intermixing, people wanting to really understand the science behind a dish, but also creating these beautiful works of art that were intended to be destroyed upon consumption. It was fascinating.
I will never eat dinner the same way again.
So, intersections of class became a part of that conversation because I saw people who weren't exposed to fresh vegetables, and 4 years later, they could order wine with the best of them. They knew everything that you need to have sort of like that table manner etiquette that oftentimes in business circles will separate you from your peers if you don't possess it. So I realized that class barriers were falling as a result of this education, not just, skills being built. And it was really funny to see people grapple with that and kind of come into their own. And that's what really led me into mentoring more. I felt that there was this served voice amongst students where they weren't taking the traditional pathway, but they hungered for knowledge and they were having trouble finding a place to celebrate that.
Fascinating. So I think all of your life experiences is perfect for you to be in a position to not just mentor young people, but people of all ages. And a couple of takeaways that I got just from the little bit that you shared is it's okay to not necessarily know what you want to do. And sometimes that's actually a gift because it opens up the opportunity to explore.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to know, but you do have to do and try and experiment all sorts of things. I'm sure it was not easy for you to make the announcement and decide, that you weren't going to go into medicine and to dabble into all these different things, but you certainly have learned a lot along the way. I think the other thing that I learned from you is, you're never really stuck in any one decision. And the other thing is, if you have an interest in a lot of things, there's no reason why you can't pursue all of those things. You can have many careers in a lifetime. You're not necessarily stuck in one direction.
That's absolutely true. One of my great mentors said to me, because I had gotten some critique from another mentor in a fellowship that I was in at City College, which is where I did my undergraduate in Harlem. And she said, whenever someone tells you you can't do something, they're just telling you what they can't do. It has nothing to do with you.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and that stuck
I'm
with
gonna
me.
write that quote down.
Yeah, it really is. If you believe in yourself and you believe, why not? Because there will be so many people to tell you that it can't happen, but if you're the lone voice inside your spirit and your pathway that says, I can do this because I want to try, there's nothing you can't do, really. It's that's that sort of unstoppable force, and you need to have the skills and talent to back it up, but sheer force of will get you pretty far.
Well, and I think it starts with will too, right? Because if you don't believe that you can do it, you wouldn't take the next steps in order to develop the skills and the knowledge that you need to be good at it.
Agreed.
So before I let you go, and I could talk to you all day, but we do have a lineup of a whole lot of other guests.
Right.
So since you have done so many things and you have so many interests, what do you think is next for you? Maybe if you look ahead a couple years from now, is there any new territory that you see yourself embarking in?
Definitely. I think that my big goal, and I know my husband's big goal in coming back to Milwaukee, was to contribute to the community. And so what I'd like to do is to continue to bring eyes to Wisconsin and eyes to Milwaukee. So I have been really fortunate to work with clients on both coasts and all over the world. And I've been creating sort of a little network of Milwaukee talent. So I had a friend, a colleague actually, who wanted to transition. She was looking for someone to help with copy. I said, I know someone, they're great. They're here in Milwaukee, let me introduce you. Because I feel that we are in a phenomenal city, and I feel that there's things that Milwaukee has always been leading about, but because we're Midwesterners, we're sort of like, well, that's just what we do the work. And I'd love to see more people embracing the talent that's here and sharing the talent that we have within our city on a wider scale, so that we can build a stronger community. Because I love my hometown, I believe in it 100%, and I just want to see it grow.
That's fantastic. It is all about community. And I hope that you help to build some of that community here at No Studios.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Andi, Sciacca, I just had to say it again. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for the work that you do and the advice and the mentoring that you give other people. That's really, really important.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes. All right. So now sit tight. Like I said, maybe you want to replenish your popcorn, get a little bit more to drink, because at 1:30, we are going to be talking with Gabby. And Gabby is going to really surprise you, so stick around.
Okay, so you want to open a bar. No, it's not a bar. It's a social space. Okay, well, it's a club. Well, it's a club, but it's really about artists and about engaging in the community. We want a screening room. But we also would love a bar and a coffee area where people could hang out. It would be great if we had tenants involved, but it would also be great if we had an upper space where people could work and flow together. We want to incubate, we want to encourage and socialize. A place where you can just relax between meetings or obligations. A place where you can have an idea and say, hey, you know what would be great if we could do this or we could do that. That's what this space is all about.